Welcome back to the deep dive. So picture this. You're looking at, say, a job candidate, maybe sizing up a new investment, and boom, within seconds, you just get a feeling.
Yeah, like a really deep, confident feeling. Right. Good or bad.
Exactly. But where does that instant confidence actually come from? And, maybe more importantly, why is that fast, automatic answer sometimes just spectacularly wrong?
Well, that kind of internal mental collision, that's precisely what we're diving into today. We're exploring some really foundational research into human judgment, decision-making, basically mapping out that internal wrestling match.
Between the fast, intuitive you and the slow, more effortful you.
That's the one.
And our goal here, it isn't just to give you a list of, cognitive biases or something.
Whoa, definitely not.
Our mission really is to hand you a kind of roadmap, something to help you recognize those mental situations, those cognitive minefields where that confident gut feeling, it might be systematically leading you down the wrong path.
We're trying to get a look inside the dual system architecture of your mind.
Okay, so where did all this insight come from? It wasn't just one person in a lab, was it?
No, not at all. It actually grew out of this really remarkable long partnership, 14 years between two brilliant scientists.
And they were quite different, weren't they?
Very. I mean, similar enough that they could really understand each other, but different enough that they were constantly surprising each other. One was, the very logical theorist type.
Yeah.
And the other was more of an intuitive psychologist, really rooted in perception.
And their method, that sounds like it was key. They didn't just study other people.
Right. That's what was so explosive. They studied themselves. They were in this constant conversation, designing these little experiments, testing their own gut reactions, their intuitive answers to statistical questions.
Their own answers, wow.
Yeah, exactly. And the really profound insight was this. They figured, probably correctly, that if they both shared the same error, the same bias in their quick answers,
Then maybe everyone has it.
then that glitch was likely universal. Yeah. So by systematically cataloging their own shared cognitive mistakes, they basically mapped out these mechanisms of error that, affect all of us.
And that work became huge, didn't it? Like really influential.
Oh, massively. Some of the most highly cited research in social science, used in everything from, medical diagnosis to finance, even military strategy.
Which brings us neatly to this core idea, System 1 and System 2.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to think of ourselves as System 2, right? The conscious bit, the reasoning self, doing the hard work, making deliberate choices.
The internal accountant, maybe, calculating, deliberating.
Yeah. But the research seems pretty clear that System 1, that automatic, effortless engine that just spits out impressions and feelings, that's actually the star of the show.
It really is. It's always on, always running in the background, providing the raw material for our thoughts. It's the hero, even if we identify with System 2.
And System 2 are conscious attention. That takes real effort.
Oh, absolutely. System 1 is like breathing. System 2 is like, sprinting. It's hard work.
Okay, if it's so taxing, how do they actually measure that? The sheer mental cost of using System 2. Was it like brain scanners and stuff?
Actually, something much simpler and way more visual. Pupillometry.
Pupillometry. So watching people's pupils.
Literally just watching the size of their pupils. They found mental activity is, measurable. Like holding 2 or 3 digits in your head. That's like a comfortable walk for the brain.
Okay.
But they're really demanding mental sprints. They use this thing called the add 3 task. You start with 4 digits, say 5294.
Right.
And you have to continuously add 3 to each digit in your head, reporting the new string. So it becomes 8527, then 1850, and so on. You're constantly updating that. That's maximum mental exertion.
Wow. Okay, so when someone was doing that add 3 task, you could see the effort in their eyes.
You absolutely could. That kind of maximum cognitive effort could make the pupil dilate by about 50%. Huge change.
50%.
Yeah. The dilation was basically a direct index of the mental resources being burned. The researchers could literally tell the exact moment a subject just gave up on a complex multiplication problem.
Oh.
Just by watching their pupils snap back to normal size. It contracted.
Yeah.
That's a physical, undeniable measure of conscious mental effort.
That is incredible. And because that effort is so high, it makes perfect sense why we tend to just let System 1 handle things.
Which leads us right to the law of least effort.
Ah, yes. We're fundamentally lazy, mentally speaking.
Pretty much. System 2 is inherently resource intensive. It's expensive. So if you have several ways to achieve the same goal, people naturally gravitate toward the least demanding one.
Makes sense.
And since System 1 is fast, it's effortless, and honestly, it's good enough a lot of the time. We just let it steer the ship, even when maybe the situation really needs that internal account in System 2 to wake up and actually check the figures.
Okay, so when System 1 is driving, it uses these mental shortcuts, right? Heuristics. And there's one core mechanism behind a lot of errors. Substitute.
Exactly. Substitution is key. When System 1 hits a really difficult target question, something complex like, I don't know, what's the long-term viability of this company? Quickly, and usually without you even noticing,
Switches it out.
switches it out for an easier related heuristic question. Something like, how much do I like their latest product? Or does the CEO seem confident?
Like the example in the research.
Right.
The executive facing. Should I invest in Ford stock?
Right. Instead of doing months of deep market analysis, which is hard System 2 work.
System 1 just answers the much easier question. Do I like Ford cars?
Precisely.
Hold on. So the executive isn't even aware they're doing this. They're not consciously deciding to use a shortcut.
Usually not, no. System 1 delivers that feeling, I like the cars, and System 2, being lazy, often just accepts that feeling as a valid reason for the investment. It then constructs a coherent story after the fact to justify it.
Wow. That's dangerous.
It is. And that misplaced confidence gets baked in even harder by another feature of System 1, WYSIATI.
WYSIATI. What you see is all there is.
No.
That acronym.
No. It's brilliant, isn't it? It basically means System 1 constructs the best, most coherent story it possibly can,
Right.
but only using the information that's immediately available right then. It doesn't pause to ask, is this all the information I need? Is it reliable?
It just works with what it's got.
Exactly, which leads to this kind of shocking paradox. It's often easier to feel confident and build a coherent story when you actually know very little.
Because there are fewer pieces to fit together, fewer contradictions.
Precisely. Fewer conflicts.
Yeah.
This is why it's so easy to form a really strong, confident opinion about someone based on, say, just their LinkedIn profile or a single news headline. You've got a few bullet points, System 1 whips up a confident narrative around that extremely limited data, and WYSIATI makes you feel like that's the whole picture.
Okay, speaking of things that pop into our heads easily, let's talk about the availability heuristic.
Ah, yes, availability. This is all about how we judge the importance, or maybe the frequency, of an event based purely on how easily examples come to mind.
And what makes things easy to remember? Drama, media coverage, things that stand out.
You got it. The source material is really clear on this. Media coverage heavily influences what we think is important. Critical issues that are maybe, well, a bit boring, like declining educational standard, they get less coverage.
Right, they don't make good headlines.
But dramatic, emotionally vivid events, a plane crash, a big celebrity scandal, the threat of terrorism, those things dominate our thoughts because they're so easily recalled. We overestimate their frequency or importance just because they're available in memory.
Regardless of the actual statistics.
Completely regardless.
And this can lead to these feedback loops, right? These availability cascades.
Yes, exactly. It's quite scary, actually. You see these vivid, emotionally charged images, maybe linked to some sensational crime or a political event. The fear, the outrage, that's automatic. That's System 1.
Even if System 2 kind of knows the actual risk is low.
Right. System 2 might rationally understand the probability, but System 1 is still driving this excessive automatic response based purely on how easily those vivid images come to mind. And that's how public policy can end up being shaped more by sort of public panic than by actual data.
Okay, another weird shortcut, anchoring. This one feels almost absurd.
It really does. It demonstrates the power of completely irrelevant numbers to just mess with your quantitative judgments.
For classic study is the Wheel of Fortune one.
Right, that's the one. They had this rigged wheel. It only landed on 10 or 65.
Totally random numbers, basically.
Those random. They'd spin it, show the student the number, have them write it down. Then they asked a totally unrelated question: what percentage of African nations are in the UN?
And the number on the wheel, it influenced their answer, even though they knew it was random.
Heavily. Students who saw the number 65 on the wheel gave significantly higher estimates for the UN percentage than students who saw the number 10.
That's bizarre. How does that even work?
Well, the research suggests it works in two ways. System 2 tries to adjust away from the anchor number, but it's lazy, remember? So it makes an insufficient adjustment. It stops too soon.
Okay.
But there's also a System 1 component. The anchor number acts as a prime. It selectively evokes compatible evidence in your mind. If you see 65, thoughts of many African nations might pop up more easily.
Wow, okay. Let's talk about another big one, representativeness. Judging things based on stereotypes.
And crucially, how that leads to base rate neglect. This is where we judge the probability of something based purely on how well it matches a stereotype or a prototype, and we completely ignore the underlying statistical reality.
The Tom W. problem illustrates this perfectly, doesn't it?
It does. So participants get this detailed personality sketch of a fictional guy, Tom W. He's described as, highly introverted, very neat, methodical, kind of fits a certain stereotype.
Like a librarian or maybe a computer scientist back in the day.
Exactly. And then people were asked to rank various graduate fields by the likelihood that Tom W. is enrolled in them. And consistently, people ranked fields like computer science or library science very highly.
Because he looked like the stereotype.
Because he was representative of the stereotype,
Well,
yeah.
they forgot something crucial.
They completely ignored the base rate. They forgot to consider that there are vastly, vastly more graduate students overall in fields like humanities or social sciences than there are in library science.
So even if he's a perfect match for the librarian stereotype, the sheer numbers mean it's statistically much more likely he's in one of those larger fields.
Correct. But System 1 didn't answer the difficult probability question. It substituted the easier question, how similar is Tom W. to the prototype for this field? And that answer felt right, so System 2 didn't object. #tag the limits of intuition and prediction.
Okay, so all these shortcuts, it makes you wonder when we can actually trust our intuition. Is intuition always flawed?
Not always. This brings us to a really important distinction between true expert intuition and what's often just illusory confidence. The great Herbert Simon, a Nobel laureate, he defined true intuition beautifully. He said, "Intuition is nothing more and nothing less than recognition."
Recognition, meaning you've seen the pattern before, anytime.
Exactly. Think of a chess grandmaster looking at a board, or an experienced firefighter sizing up a burning building. They're not performing complex calculations consciously. They're recognizing familiar patterns built up over thousands of hours of experience.
So skilled intuition needs certain conditions.
Precisely. Two main conditions are needed. First, you need a regular environment. It has to be sufficiently predictable, offering reliable feedback. Chess is like that. Firefighting, to a degree, certain medical diagnoses.
And that condition.
Prolonged practice.
Yeah.
Years and years of learning those patterns in the regular environment.
Okay, so contrast that with what? Stock pickers, political forecasters.
Exactly. Those operate in what the researchers call low validity environments. Environments where there's a huge amount of randomness and unpredictability. Luck plays a massive role.
But the confidence is still high.
Oh, confidence can be sky high, but the actual accuracy of their long-term predictions, often barely better than chance. It's skilled intuition versus the illusion of skill.
Right. And speaking of things that defy our intuition about prediction, regression to the mean, this one is really tricky.
It's profoundly counterintuitive for most people. It's the simple statistical reality that any extreme performance, whether it's exceptionally good or exceptionally bad, is likely to be followed by a performance that's closer to the average.
Because extreme results often involve a dose of luck, good or bad.
That's a big part of it, yes. But our minds hate randomness. We crave causal explanations. We see a change. We want a reason why.
Like the famous story about the flight instructor.
Oh, the flight instructor anecdote is perfect. He observed that whenever he really shouted at a cadet for doing something exceptionally badly on a maneuver, the cadet almost always performed better the next time. Conversely, when he lavished praise on a cadet for an exceptionally brilliant maneuver,
Let me guess. They usually did worse next time.
they almost always did worse next time.
So naturally, he concluded.
He concluded that shouting works and praise is actually detrimental to training.
Oh no. He missed the regression effect completely.
Completely. He drew a totally flawed causal conclusion. What he failed to recognize was that the exceptionally good or exceptionally bad performance was likely just that exceptional, probably due to some temporary random factors, luck, whatever.
So the next performance was statistically likely to just drift back towards the cadet's actual average skill level.
Exactly. Regardless of whether he shouted or praised, he was confusing a purely statistical fluctuation with cause and effect.
That's profound, actually. It means we're constantly drawing false lessons from events that are statistics playing out.
All the time. And this blindness to statistical reality, it feeds right into other biases, like how we view the past. We look back and think things were way more predictable than they really were.
Ah, the hindsight bias and the outcome bias.
Yep. Hindsight bias makes past events seem almost inevitable, right? You look back at a market crash or a political upset and think, oh, the signs were all there, I should have known.
Guilty as charged. Especially with investments I should have sold. It was so obvious.
We all do it.
Yeah.
And that certainty feeds the outcome bias. This is where we judge the quality of a decision based almost entirely on whether the result was good or bad.
Instead of judging it based on the process or the information available at the time the decision was made.
Precisely. Think about a doctor who takes a small, calculated risk, maybe a 90% chance of success, but it's still a risk. If that 10% chance happens and the patient has a tragic outcome,
Everyone immediately judges the original decision as reckless. How could they have done that?
exactly. The bad outcome retroactively paints the decision as bad, even if probabilistically it was the right call based on the information available then.
Okay, this ties into something really relevant, especially for planning things, in business or life. The planning fallacy.
Oh, the planning fallacy is huge. It's our systematic tendency to take the inside view.
The inside view, meaning focusing only on our specific situation.
Yeah. Focusing narrowly on our specific plan, our unique circumstances, our team's amazing talent and enthusiasm.
While completely ignoring.
While completely ignoring the outside view, which is the statistical track record of similar projects or situations, the base rate.
Right, like the example of the team developing a new curriculum.
Perfect example. They estimated how long it would take based entirely on their own progress, their own optimism, their specific plan, the inside view.
And what did the outside view say?
The outside view, the statistics for similar curriculum development projects undertaken, previously showed that such projects typically took between 7 and 10 years to complete and had something like a 40% failure rate.
Ouch. And I bet their initial estimate was much shorter.
Way shorter. Their specific, compelling, optimistic inside view completely drowned out the boring, statistical, but ultimately much more predictive outside view. #, summary and final thought.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've seen System 1 is this amazing, fast, automatic machine.
But one that relies on shortcuts, substituting easy questions for hard ones.
Building these really confident stories based on whatever limited info is lying around WISIAD.
Using availability, representativeness, anchoring, all these heuristics that often work, but sometimes lead us seriously astray, especially when statistics are involved.
And crucially, we've learned that System 2, our conscious monitor, is powerful, but, well, lazy and resource hungry.
Exactly. Continuous vigilance just isn't practical. You can't constantly second-guess every single intuition or impression System 1 throws up. It would be exhausting.
So we can't just turn off our biases.
Doesn't seem like it. The most effective strategy, according to the source material, is more about recognition. Learning to recognize the types of situations, the high-stakes moments, where these kinds of mirrors were most likely to bite you.
Which brings us to maybe the toughest part of all this. The research strongly suggests it's always way easier to spot these cognitive errors in other people than it is in ourselves.
Oh, much easier. We see the flight instructor's mistake instantly, right? Obvious.
Yeah. But seeing our own regression to the mean errors or our own WISIAD, much harder.
So if System 1 is always running automatically, and we can't just switch it off when we feel like it, what's the takeaway? What's the single most important discipline you need to cultivate, especially when the stakes are really high?
What do you have to consciously do to force yourself out of that comfortable, intuitive, often biased inside view?
And into the more rational, statistical, but often less comfortable outside view?
What's the practical step?
You have to cultivate the habit of deliberately seeking out and maybe even demanding a relevant reference class, actively looking for the base rate, asking, how have similar situations turned out in the past? Even and especially when your gut feeling, your System 1, is screaming that your situation is completely unique and different.
So fighting that feeling of uniqueness and forcing yourself to look at the statistics.
That rigorous shift in perspective seems to be the most reliable way we know to try and counteract that powerful law of least effort precisely when our decisions matter the most. It's not easy, but it might be the best defense we have.